Hey, hello everybody. This is Johnny Hustle from the Lean Guys, and here to welcome you to another exciting discussion that we're going to have with David Cothran of CribMaster, and of course, Mustang Mike is with us as well. So today, the topic is going to be around cost savings and return on investment. And as you guys have all heard me talk about before, it's all about the hidden factory. And the hidden factory is when you need something to do your job. You go to the tool crib to get that thing, and you find out that maybe there's only one or two left. So then you get nervous and you decide, I better take both of them. And you take those back to your work area. You put one in the machine, you put the other one in your drawer, and now somebody else who might need that same part can't get it. And all of a sudden, the purchasing people are buying extras to compensate for the fact that they can never have what they need when they need it. And that really builds up to a tremendous amount of money. And it's all hidden. Nobody can see where it went. Everybody who decided that they needed to hoard or get an extra tool, they did it with their best intentions in mind because they just didn't trust that they were going to get what they needed when they needed it. So David, tell us, how is CribMaster going to save us a tremendous amount of money to combat the hidden factory?
It's a great topic. I don't know if there's one simple way or the easy button that I think most customers are looking for. I think, when our phone rings and a customer's on the other end asking for a solution, they're asking usually for a specific reason to go solve a problem. But the problem may have many, many different tangibles or fingers associated to it. You mentioned coming to the tool crib and looking for the tool or asking for the tool. And, you always ask the question of what if? What if the tool's not there? Well, how much time did I spend coming to the crib to find out the tool's not even there? You've probably got a pretty high paid individual walking back and forth just to realize the tool's not where I thought it was or that I have it available. A lot of customers forget about that piece of the pie, and that cost of doing business is probably buried somewhere in the financial records of the business of the product they're making or whatever that business is from a profitability standpoint. But that cost is enormous when you start thinking about foot traffic. And you just look at what CribMaster does. We evaluate that as a potential. That's where potential point of use comes into play. Heck, if I can walk 5 feet versus 5 million feet, there's a potential cost savings just in foot traffic. If you just think about that. Notice that we haven't talked about the tool. We just talked about the process, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, then you get into some of the other things behind the scenes, right? The automation of understanding the tool's checked out. Uh-oh, it came back damaged. What do? I have to react. When you can start automating replenishment points, you understand how much am I ordering? Well, I'm not ordering 10 because I'm afraid of running out. Now I'm ordering 2 because that's really what the requirement of the business is. It's savings.
Yeah.
I think there's lots of different ways to consider those things from a cost savings point of view. I think evaluating cost savings really, really comes into saying, what is the process flow, the entire evolution of a tool or an item being managed? And if you can really take that approach, you'll probably find that you've got substantial savings way beyond just the fact that I didn't have the tool when I needed it right then. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it certainly does. And those distances you were talking about, I think Mike can tell you a few stories at one of the bigger large industrial sites that we've worked on, where people would actually walk miles, right, Mike?
Yep. They would go from one end of the place they work to the other end of it, and usually they never go by themselves. They usually take a buddy, so there's 2 people at the same time. But yeah, so you've got that where you got 2 people off at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a scenario where a customer came to us that have multiple cribs across their footprint. I mean, multiple large cribs they manage their calibrated tooling with, and they have their own in-house calibration lab. So, which is really nice. It's a little bit of an unusual model. The problem is they don't have a very good process flow for those tools going from their crib to the cal lab. So what they found is that they've got tools sitting at a cal lab they don't even know is there, and they're finding themselves reordering tools because they feel like they've lost them. And now what they've got is tools coming back from the cal lab that are perfectly good working calibrated tools. Now they have duplicate tools. So they've just added more process, more cost to their process flow just because they didn't have any visibility of the transactions of how they move from point A to point B. Those aren't even associated to the employee using the tool. That's just internal process of where it goes from point A to point B. So I think critical parts of thinking about savings comes more than just the individual using the item. I think there's certainly huge cost savings in evaluating how they use it. Do they have the right tool at the right time at the right place? Those are big, emotional reactions for people to say, I didn't have the tool, I couldn't do my job. Those certainly cost the business money. But what about all the other tangible factors that make the tool workable? Is it the right cut resistant glove? How often do we hear that, right?
Yeah.
Gloves perspective, right?
Yep.
Great, I've got a level 5, but do I need a level 5? I mean, is a level 5 the right glove for the right application? It's probably not always analyzed properly. That's when data comes in and understanding, hey, I know that I'm issuing this many to that department. Oh my goodness, they're using way more than what our engineering plan called for from that point of view.
Well, the other thing I would think about is also there's items that expire. Even if you had like printer cartridges that have an expiration date built into it, you could be tossing stuff away and never get to use it because of that, and other things like that. So,
well, the same thing with epoxies and urethanes and all kinds of other products that end up on the shelf that, the date comes and goes, and sure enough, you try to use that, and your traceability issues and everything else that with using an expired product becomes a real problem.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a great example. I mean, look at the world we live in today unfortunately, with the pandemic and everything that's going on around us, right? And safety and PPE, and we're working a project right now with gas monitors, right? And I mean, you check them out, they're all the same monitor types, but they all have a date, an expiration date, where they have to come back and be bump tested. They don't get bump tested. Now the individual who's got the monitor may be at risk. I mean, those are huge factors that, man, when it fails, it's really costly and painful for the organization responsible for it.
So these aren't just, what happens is we end up in these arguments with people about cost avoidance being something that you can measure. Well, the fact is that everything that we just talked about are not cost avoidance issues. These are real dollar issues. The actual, tool cost of not having the right number of tools from what you need, the travel cost of people walking all around the facility, the non-working time while you're traveling, you're not working, the wrong tool. I'm not using the right tool for the job. I'm using the second best tool or the third best tool. And geez, is that even really in the good calibration for what that job's supposed to be? Oh, and by the way, the product that I went and found was where I wanted it, but it was expired. I mean, all of that just adds up to huge money. And, and as you said, David, CribMaster can do a lot to alleviate those issues.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say that's really what we're there for. And, John, when I first got introduced to you, you guys were talking about visibility. And I think that's such a powerful word, that when you can bring visibility, whether through transactional or whether through data, when you can add visibility to what the organization's doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, then you've added a tremendous amount of runway to go really analyze and create efficiency and gain knowledge about what your business should run like. You just think through that whole evolution of a tool, and when you could say, I know who's checked it out. Not only do I know who's checked it out, I know where it got checked out too. And then I can tell you, hey, by the way, I can see it sitting over there in a spot for when it does not make it back, I can go retrieve it. I mean, that's a lot of visibility that you can bring to an environment. You can call it corrective action or you can call it proactive thinking, however you want to call that, depending on the scenario. But they're very, very powerful cost savings for a company that has none of it.
Right. And, Mike, you've done a lot of stuff with, practically. Yeah, I know that when we're talking with David, we're talking a lot of stuff about what CribMaster could do. But you and I have actually done a lot of the things with integrating systems. So we see exactly what CribMaster does do. And we get into a lot of the details there of exactly how to build the spreadsheets that we use that end up becoming the databases, which end up really putting in place all of the different aspects of what the clients need in order to track all these things. from your experience, Mike, tell us a little bit about, pick on our big client out in Chicago and some of the things that we did there, and the effort that we put in, but the return that they got from that. If you can tell a little story there.
Yeah, I can't talk numbers because I really don't have that at my fingertips. We weren't prepared to talk about that. However, there was, when we were hunting for stuff and looking for stuff, it was amazing what was there and what was hoarded and what we found. So all of those kind of things, I mean, everywhere we went, we just, found more and more of the same stuff. So
what would be your guess on how many cabinets that we found scattered throughout the plant that were not listed anywhere in the organization as inventory points?
I'd say over 30, 40, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, that was my guess. My gut check guess as well was in the 30, 40 range, and those were big cabinets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now the good news is that once we pulled all that material in, we had the opportunity, although that particular client didn't take it, to put that material right back out there as inventory points, and we could have used the point of use inventory boxes that CribMaster has. Instead, they decided they wanted to hold a little tighter control in one particular location, which was 100% against our advice. However, it still gave them a tremendous amount more control and visibility.
More than they had before.
Oh,
yeah.
How much
they didn't
more?
have a clue before.
Right.
Yeah. I think what you're saying though, Mike, is pretty commonplace too. I'd say unfortunately for them, not unfortunately for CribMaster, because that's the kind of stuff that keeps us in business, right?
Yep.
Is I walk into a plant and I may be there to look at a specific process flow or a specific problem to solve, but as I walk through and just look around at some of the common things that they're doing, there's savings all over the place, and sometimes you got to take smaller bites off the elephant to kind of get started, but I would say that's pretty commonplace to see that there's a ton of opportunity to address every step of their process flow to create call savings for them. That's continued as well, right?
Yep.
And then you think through that from a point of use device and working backwards, taking all that didn't have any visibility to it and then putting it in a centralized place to try to go get visibility to, which I'm a supporter of, because even that gives you data now to really start saying, which items do I really need closer to the workstations instead of having them all. Now you really have the data set to really make good business decisions that create really strong ROIs on to put it at point of use.
So, David, I'll give you another little war story about, while you're out there trying to solve one problem, you start to recognize other problems. We had another client location, another big industrial facility in the Cincinnati area. And while we were watching some team members changing over a line from one size product to another size product, I noticed that one of the workers was taking this section of conveyor belt off. They look like gigantic rubber bands because the way the product rides, they ride on very small points. So these rubber bands are really the conveyor belts. And I saw that this one mechanic take this conveyor belts off and hang them on a hook near the line and put new ones on. And then I noticed that there was a whole bunch of those over there. So I approached the gentleman. I said, "Hey, what's the story with these bands over here?" And he was so concerned from what he had seen in the stock room that they did not have enough spare parts, that he was afraid that he was going to have to take these worn ones and put them back on the machine because they were going to be better than what he was taking off, and he didn't think that they were going to have enough spare parts in the warehouse. Now that kicked off a whole nother issue, but it was all about going back to the visibility and the trust. They did not trust that product was going to be there when they needed it, and therefore they were willing to put something that they knew was worn out back on the machine because it was the best of the worst.
It's true.
Yeah.
I've said this for years that hoarding typically is a representation of bad inventory management, right? Most people think hoarding is a bad representation or representation of an employee doing something incorrectly or being selfish. It's usually a factor of bad inventory management that creates the first stages of hoarding.
Right. So, hey, David, I really appreciate you coming to talk to us about this, and we had a lot of good points about where the money comes from for return on investment, and whether it's, you know, having the right tool for the job, with the travel distances, with the non-working time, and with utilizing the wrong tool for the job, and expiring products and everything else that goes along with that. So I really do appreciate you coming on board and talking to us more about that. Mustang Mike, appreciate your time as well. So with that, we're going to sign off on another show of the Lean Guys. And if you really like everything that you hear us talking about, please subscribe and make sure you hit that like button below. Thank you very much.